Ready to rock and roll.
What questions do you have for me?
I want to hear more about how you got there.
Who's
got to the top.
Yeah, so I started selling new construction in 2017. That's all I know.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's all I do.
Yeah.
I've never done an outside transaction. I've never represented a buyer on a single deal.
Wow.
I don't know how to put a house on the MLS. I don't.
Dang.
And I've done about 500 transactions or so at this point since 2017.
That's incredible.
With about 350 in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Since 2020 started.
Dang.
So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I started off in the wholesale world.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. So give us a little bit of background into what your, Well, before we do that, we've had a couple of your friends on the show.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from any of them?
No,
like, did you
only Tim?
Only Tim?
Yeah.
Tim is your only. He's
my guy.
Okay. And what? Yeah. How has that been with him?
It's been great. I mean, in my first year, I'll be over probably a little over 20 million.
Which is impressive. Congratulations.
Yeah. And in volume.
You're how old? 22?
22.
You're a kid.
So I started at 21 last year.
Okay. Back up completely.
Yeah.
What were you doing 2 years ago? Before real estate, what did life look like for you?
I was a college swimmer. I swam at the U.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah, I was on the swim team.
Where are you from originally?
Arizona.
Okay, where at?
Mesa. So I had a scholarship. I got recruited. I swam at the U. Originally, while I was swimming, I was super interested in real estate, and I found a mentor
for investing or like selling.
Just investing.
Okay.
Through like the Utah RIA, and I don't know if you know a guy. His name's Jerry Norton. He's out of Arizona. He's probably like the biggest like YouTube wholesaler. He has a couple 100,000 subscribers.
Will you explain wholesaling? Because
yeah.
we talk a lot on the real estate side, but wholesaling is its own world that, like, even me who's done a bunch of real estate transactions at this point, I couldn't explain it to somebody.
Yeah. So essentially you're finding a motivated seller. So somebody who has some sort of distress. And so, for example, the last wholesale deal I did a couple months ago, they had a divorce. There was $10,000 in federal tax liens on the house.
They came from what? What does the tax lien look like? Like what?
So they just didn't pay their taxes.
Oh, sorry. So you're saying that they didn't pay their taxes, like their property taxes?
No, federal income taxes.
Okay. See, this is all new to me. Okay.
Yeah, and they placed a lien on the house in second position behind the first position mortgage. And after realtor fees and that kind of stuff, and it was also a hoarder house, it just
they usually are, I feel like.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense. They didn't know how to get out of it, so we came in all cash, and we gave them an offer. And during our due diligence period, we would find a cash buyer who would be able to pay a little bit more than us, and we assign the contract to them. So just basically assigning the right to purchase that home to them. So we actually never even put any of our own money into the deal.
And this is how whenever you see somebody on social media that's talking about buying real estate with no money out of pocket, this is generally what they're referring to.
Yeah, and then the other end of the spectrum is the creative finance world and like mortgage assumptions, contracts for deeds subject to. That's the other side where they're saying no money out of pocket. That's when you're just really taking over people's loans.
Okay, and at what point were you like, oh, this world is kind of sweet, I got to get into this a little bit?
I got my first check.
Oh.
And I was 19 and still swimming at the U, and I was cold calling, and I got one, and I made $15,000 in 2 weeks.
Who do you cold call for that?
There's tons of lists. I mean, pre-foreclosures, utility shutoffs. You can pull a list from the county of all the homes that have had utilities shut off, meaning they aren't making.
And that's a giveaway.
Yeah, I mean they're not making their utility payments anymore. Any sort of liens, tax liens, mechanics liens. I mean, there's a multitude of things you can go through. Homes that are boarded up, those are all gold mines.
So were these all mostly like local properties here in Utah?
Yeah, I've done a couple deals in Indianapolis. Me and Tim bought 6 units in Wisconsin, but almost all of like my assignments have been here in Utah.
So then, at what point we're like, okay, now I'm gonna go get my license?
I was so me and Tim golfed on the golf course, and he opened my eyes to how many opportunities I was missing. Because the premise of wholesaling is you are purchasing a home at 50 cents on the dollar. So think about how many more people I was calling than an agent to get somebody who would be willing to sell at an extreme discount so I could assign the contract to a cash buyer who
you were finding like a very small amount of possible sellers, right?
Oh, absolutely. So I was finding a deal that would still make sense for a flipper to go flip and make money too. But I was completely disregarding all the people who were like, yeah, I would sell for $400,000. But for me, that didn't make sense because I couldn't sell that contract. But to list it, it would make sense
all day long.
But I wasn't licensed. So eventually I got my license, and then I joined forces with Tim.
And this was a year ago.
Yeah.
So what describe for us kind of what the first year has been then as actually like a licensed agent, somebody that's like in it now and going for it.
Yeah, I would say for at least any of the people who would be listening who would be in the wholesale world, being licensed is significantly easier. And if you have the grit to make your dials every day and just go put your foot in the door in somebody else's position, it's been fantastic. You know, it's been a life changer for sure.
And you're still actively cold calling?
Oh, yeah.
That's still a big portion of your business?
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest deals have came from cold calling.
What would you say like the craziest deal so far that's happened for you has been? Like what's the deal that makes you like, I can't believe that one actually closed?
My third month in the business, I put $7 million under contract in one day. Okay. In Park City with Tim.
So is that a one time? Is that like explain that to us.
Yeah. So it's up in Hideout actually. It would be like the east side of the Jordanelle. There's a Homes development up there, and they were fully permitted short-term rentals, and the only fully permitted short-term rentals on that side of the Jordanelle. And Tim knew about them actually, but I was cold calling Zillow for leases, so landlords who are putting their property up to lease, and I was cold calling the owners of those people who were trying to get their homes rented with the idea that these guys have money, they would probably want to buy one more. And I called the right guy who was interested to get into the short-term rental world, and we pitched him this deal in Hideout, and he bought 6 of them. And I have one of them active right now in the market listed. He has about probably $200,000 to $300,000 in equity in each one.
Wow. And he's I mean, the real estate market's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? What have you seen kind of start to change the most as you've only been in a short amount of time, but there's a lot that is changing. And I would say that what we're seeing is that the skill set that you needed a year ago is not the same skill set that is needed this year. And I've even heard Spring, I've heard Tim, I've heard a lot of people talk about these different things. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you are holding on to from this first year going into this next year? And then kind of walk us through like some of the different things that you're going to be doing this next year.
Oh, for sure.
Because 20-something million at 22 years old, you're younger than me. How old was I when I started? I started doing mortgages when I was 21, and then 3 years. So I was 24 when I started officially selling. Yeah. And I think my first year I was at like 15, maybe 20 million. Yeah. But nothing like that. So kudos to you.
I think it's going to take a lot more activities in regards to like the individual agent. If let's say their goal was to make 20 contacts a day, you're probably going to want to double or triple just because the people you're looking for is getting smaller and smaller, that buyer population for the time being. But I think investing in your education, like right now, I think there is a massive opportunity right now in people who would do mortgage assumptions, meaning there's a ton of people who bought last year that have really cheap debt, but they are kind of upside down on their house right now if they're trying to sell a year later. And if you think about 6% in realtor fees, they might have to come to closing with a check. But if you can bring your client into those deals who can just assume their 2.75% interest rate.
Which even though the house is underwater, if you're not trying to sell it, that really doesn't matter.
No.
It doesn't matter. I have a couple of properties myself that I'm quote unquote underwater on right now, but I don't feel the need to sell them. Why? Because they're still cash flowing $250 a month because of when I bought them.
I think there's a massive opportunity in that creative financing world where you can take over some cheap existing
give
debt.
give us a rundown really quick for anybody that's listening, because I think the biggest thing that buyers need right now is interest rate reprieve.
Yeah.
Right? Interest rates right now are just that is what is pushing the market down, and it's a weird time where every time homes get more affordable, they get more expensive monthly.
Yeah,
right? It's a weird time where this is so different. I got into this argument with some agents on Facebook the other day who were talking about how agents from 2008, 9, 10 are going to have such an easy time in this market. I'm like, listen, this is so much different than anything people have navigated. Why? Because payments are going up at an insane rate, right? We're talking almost 100% year over year on a monthly payment going up.
Yeah.
Right. So talk us through, because you're seeing that, or at least I'm seeing that almost as like a buzzword thrown around, this assumable mortgage. What does that actually look like? What does that process look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a ton of ways to do it. And I mean, my wife's a lender too. So
I didn't know that. How long have you been married?
Dylan Lewis. 2 months.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's exciting. Big year for you then.
It's been a big year. But so there's a ton of ways to look at like the creative financing world. For example, you can go the traditional route of assuming an existing loan where you have to go qualify. So you can take over that person's mortgage, but the deed and the mortgage goes into your name. You can also do what's called a subject to.
Is every mortgage assumable for the most part?
No. But there's ways around that. You could do what's called a subject to, where you're purchasing the property subject to the existing loan. However, the loan stays in their name. So you get the title, but the loan stays in their name. So you're making payments on their behalf. That's going to become ever more relevant. And there's a ton of mentorships that are really pushing this right now, because you can get some seriously powerful deals by taking over a 2.5% interest rate on somebody who's upside down, because you could still cash flow. Rents are strong.
So are you going to be okay buying a property that you know is underwater?
Yeah.
By what percentage, right? Like low. I mean, I have properties right now that if I could go back and buy them at a lower interest rate, I would pay $515, $520 for some of these now that are worth $450, $460. For sure.
I mean, I think you have to have a margin of safety when you're entering these deals. Probably, I would say a buffer of probably $400 on your cash flow spread if you include your HOA, if there is one, and then your capital expenditure and your management. But, you know, I mean, there's a ton of exits. You could sell it on a lease option. You know, somebody pays you a premium rent. They give you a little bit of a down payment, and hopefully they buy the house in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on the deal. You just want to make sure you have a really solid plan when you're exiting.
What are you advising fellow 22-year-olds? I always felt like that was kind of my avatar, right?
Yeah.
When that 24, 25-year-old would come into the model home, and I was like, okay, I know how to talk to you right now. What advice are you giving to people? Because there's a lot of people that are afraid of buying right now.
Yeah. You know, I think if you're planning on staying there, you know, and I heard you before, you think date the right, marry the house is kind of dumb, but
okay. We need to clarify, because I got a little bit of hate from that.
Yeah.
What I meant is it's not that I hate that expression, because I think that the principle of it makes a lot of sense, right? Which is the house is forever. The rate changes frequently, right? Like on my current house, I've had 3 different interest rates, and I've lived there for 5 years. I understand the principle that interest rates are changeable.
Yeah.
What I hate is that I feel like a lot of agents are just saying that to try to downplay the situation, and they can't actually explain to buyers, this is the reality of it, is that if a 40-year mortgage comes out tomorrow, right? We're talking about different ways of making financing work for you.
Yeah.
If a 40-year mortgage comes out tomorrow from a Wells Fargo, from a Chase Bank, from a reputable credit union, something like that, you will see monthly payments drop $500 or $600 a month. And what happens to the market, at least here in Utah, if all of a sudden payments drop $500 or $600 a month?
Yeah, people are going to get excited.
We're going to get going again, right? If that happens, or if interest rates, like we just saw this happen with gas, right? Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, right? But you saw all of these hedge funds that have buying houses for the last 2 years with cash.
Yep.
If you were a hedge fund that was wanting to buy cash, wouldn't you want to see monthly payments go up while purchase prices go down?
Yeah.
If you're buying cash, just saying, if you're a conspiracy theorist at home. So there's all of these things that are kind of going against the market right now. And you got to make sure that this is the right time for you to buy. But I also don't know that there's been a better time to buy in the last 3 or 4 years.
I mean, I think you have to look at it from a relative equity standpoint, you know. I think it would be an exciting thing as a buyer to think about, the people who bought in January, yeah, their payment might be a little bit less, but I got a ton of equity walking into this property if I can negotiate it right. And I mean, I'm buying it cheaper than they would have 6 months ago if this was the exact same house. My payment's going to be a little bit higher, but, I could always work on that, when rates get better, or whatever that looks like. But those people are never going to be able to change their equity position unless they have some value add strategy. So, I mean, I think it's an exciting time for a buyer to look at these discounted homes. The biggest hurdle is that scary payment, but I mean,
even with that, there's a lot of aggressive ways right now. Even with us, like we obviously have inventory and product that we need to move, and so some of the strategies that we are trying to give buyers is different opportunities to lower that monthly payment for the first couple of years, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, every lender and their mom is promoting the 3-2-1 buy down, the 2-1 buy down, and it's awesome. So I think it's an exciting time to look to purchase a home, especially compared to 6 months ago. I mean, you have options, which is awesome.
You don't have a crystal ball, but obviously I feel like you're young. You're going to be in this for a little while. You sold 20-something million. Like, obviously you got a knack for this.
Yeah.
Where do you foresee the market in the next 12 to 24 months?
Like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I think, we're going to continue to see a relative increase in inventory until we see at least a slight easing on the rate hikes.
Yeah.
But I think that's awesome. I mean, the more inventory, the better for a buyer, I think.
And then how quickly will it take to rebound? Because I think that's going to be the big question. There's going to be a couple of interesting things at play. I also think that this generation, it'll be, I don't know, this is like my personal opinion. People are used to rallying, right? You're used to Bitcoin swinging 10 to 15%. That's not weird for this generation.
Yeah.
I do think that this generation will be very, very quick on the trigger again.
Oh, yeah.
Once something changes and becomes more affordable, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure, and I can't say confidently, but I think there's a very large millennial population who's going to be paying down their student debt very soon that is going to be entering into the purchasing market for sure. I mean, I know I don't necessarily agree with the student loan forgiveness. However, I think it's going to at least somewhat help people get into the position to purchase a home. So, yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say within the next 24 months, rates are going to be back down, and we're still going to be doing the same thing we were 3 to 6 months ago.
And this is where that saying of marry the house, date the rate comes in handy.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you get a house that you otherwise would have been paying 15, 20, 30% more for, and then all of a sudden interest rates are able to drop and you're able to drop 1 or 2% off of what your rate is, you're in a fantastic situation. But I also think it's super important to make sure that the monthly payment that you're signing on for, you're okay with.
Yeah, that's the big thing. You got to be comfortable and ready to make that payment, or have some sort of strategy or house hack in mind to kind of subsidize that, because I mean, for a very normal house, it is not a very comfortable payment for a lot of the population. So that's certainly a factor to keep in mind when you're entering into these homes.
Are you seeing an increase in your buyers doing ARMs?
I actually haven't done any ARMs yet.
Okay.
But I think it's a great strategy.
Well, it is, and it gets such a bad reputation because that was such a big portion of the demise of 2008 and 9, right? For those of you at home that haven't watched The Big Short, go watch it, because it's a really good movie for explaining what happened with adjustable rates, but ultimately what they were doing is they were banking on the refi. Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. When I hear marry the house, date the rate, that I don't want people to do, I don't want them banking on the refi.
And a lot of people were making interest-only payments.
Massive amount of people were.
That is typically now a non-QM product from a lender. And so they didn't have any equity. We have a lot of equity now with a lot of people. So I think ARMs are great now for people who are comfortable with the terms, obviously. I think what's going to be ever more popular, too, is seller financing. Yeah. People need to move their house regardless. I negotiated a pretty awesome deal in Bountiful, 2%, 5% down. It was a killer rate.
For both of them, though, right? Because I'm sure that the seller was able to charge a little bit more than what they would have been able to if you had just gone straight to market with it and gone with today's interest rates.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing, too, is he gets to defer his capital gain over an extended period, which is fantastic, and it's a great way to pitch it to sellers. especially people who have quickly flipped their property, like my Park City listing right now. This guy doesn't need the cash right away, but he has at least $200,000 in equity on the exit. So we're offering seller financing just to help him disperse that capital gain. And he sells for a premium after the 5-year balloons up. You know, if you have 6% interest rate, that's fantastic.
Which, and his goal, I'm guessing, would be to, hopefully that's a lower tax year, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a lower income year, and so the tax is a little bit less.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think what that all goes to say is you obviously know your clients, I think, better than a lot of agents, and that's why you're in the top 20% of agents already in your first year. And I think that that's another skill that a lot of people lost over the last 2 years, because it didn't matter what your buyer's or your seller's opinion was. It didn't matter what their situation was. It mattered what you were getting them into. Yeah,
I was actually chatting with Jake LaSalle today.
Jake's a dog.
Yeah, he's
I had so much fun with him on that episode.
Yeah, it's kind of nice now when we're seeing a little bit slower pace. You know, I feel like I'm servicing my clients a lot better. It wasn't so much, and I don't want to say it was ever a churn and burn kind of thing, but I mean, leads were coming in so fast and they were going out. They didn't have time to make that decision.
Well, you were almost doing a disservice to those potential clients.
Yeah.
If somebody wasn't a legitimate buyer or seller.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just all those purchases that went crazy high and they went way over ask. They were all fueled by emotion, you know? And now people maybe they've pulled back on that a little bit and stuff is taking a little bit longer to transact. But I feel like it's giving us more time to be a realtor, do our job, show them how.
Earn our 3%.
Like. Yeah, earn our 3%. And plenty of people probably have their own opinion on that, but it feels good.
I asked Jake that question. What percentage of real estate agents do you think are worth 3%?
Oh, maybe 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the stats I don't even remember. I think it was the NAR put out like only 8% of agents last year at all did 4 transactions, which is
a very like that. If you're not in this and hitting 4 transactions, you got to have a serious conversation with yourself on if this is, right, especially in the last 24 months.
Yeah, I mean,
finding 4 transactions.
Easy.
I mean, I got 4 referrals from friends, right? Like,
yeah, it's been wild too. And I mean, I didn't have an SOI. You know,
you're fresh, huh?
I'm not from here.
What do you do to find? What are you doing mostly to find new people? New clients.
The investor world is the majority of my clients, I would say. So just, networking at like the local RIAs.
Okay, yeah, I've never even heard this strategy. So go through. You're 22 years old. You look like a damn kid. Mm-hmm. How are you getting people to trust you with their money?
I've invested a lot of money and time into education. So if I know what I'm talking about and I could bring them value, a lot of times the age isn't necessarily a factor. You know, and anytime they've asked me, I just tell them, I'll tell you at the closing table, you know. I don't care.
I'll tell you when we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't necessarily had an issue with that. And I know a lot of younger agents, that's like a concern to them.
It's a crutch for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you can overcome that by becoming more educated than your client base.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, though, that use that as a crutch, use that as like an excuse for why stuff's not going right. But it doesn't matter how old you are. You can do this job.
No.
There's people your age buying houses that are going to feel comfortable. But I also don't think that you have to be reserved to one group of people. But
no,
if you do want to do investments, if you do want to work with investors, you're going to work with people that know more than you. And you have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. You have to be okay and willing to also receive feedback and mentorship from these people. I mean, that's how I got in.
Whether you want it or not, it's coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I've got it plenty of times.
Yeah, I've been spanked by investors when you ask a stupid question that they feel like you should have already known the answer to.
Yep.
If they feel like you're not paying attention, if they feel like you're not in it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different breed that works with that type of people.
Oh, for sure. You know, I mean, that Park City deal that I was talking about, that guy is a major private equity guy. He owns a ton of self-storage. But he saw my value in bringing him the deal. You know, it wasn't necessarily that I was 22 years old.
Well, yeah, that's what I think it comes down to. Is it doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your race is. Like,
nope.
Ultimately, that's where it's survival of the fittest. It's are you good? Are you able to actually explain to people what your value is?
Yeah, yeah. And if people want to be in that investor world, the ultimate value is the deal. what deal can you bring them that's going to make them money?
If the deal's good enough, they don't care who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it plays true time and time again.
So I want to cover one thing, because you're freshly married, and you're in an industry that I would say is incredibly demanding if you're good at it.
Yes.
It is exhausting. You are always on call. It is incredibly difficult to set boundaries.
Yep.
I have experienced this myself, and I've had days where my morning started at 7 a.m. and I remember still being in my closet that night at 11:30 at night after everyone had gone to sleep in my house.
Yep. Just sneaking.
Still working. I was like, okay, I need an assistant, right?
Yep.
How have you balanced being married? And having a career like this, it is as demanding as it is.
I'm working on it. Yeah. It's definitely,
and that's a great answer. Like, yeah. I don't think that you have to have it perfectly balanced.
Yeah. I honestly don't think I've mastered that yet. But we certainly are trying to create boundaries. Like, I am not working Sundays anymore. I used to be like, screw it.
I will meet with you.
Yeah. I'll go show a house.
That was always my joke. Hey, Boo, can you meet? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, That was the answer.
Yeah, so for me, it's not even necessarily that. I just need to set boundaries with my clients and understand that some things don't need to happen instantaneously. And I have learned the sooner that I create that, the easier my life is with those people, and they respect my time. Because when I was getting started, I was so excited about every lead that came in. I would keel over and die for these people. But I learned they respect your time if you just
they don't ask of that. They don't ask that, right?
Yeah. If you give them that, they're gonna take it.
Once you do it one time, that's the expectation going forward.
So yeah, I've been getting a lot better at that, because I certainly would say, in the beginning, it was just all work. Didn't care what time it was, what day it was, I would do it. But yeah, as now that I've been married a few months and we're working through that, I definitely am taking the action to at least set boundaries with my clients.
You married somebody in the industry?
I brought her into the industry.
You brought her into the industry?
Yeah.
How has that been working with your wife?
It's awesome. Obviously when I have a buyer, I give them two options like they tell you to do. But it's been a great way to double our income. These were deals I was going to do with a different lender anyways.
Yeah.
And she's works with a great place that provides great rates, and we've already used them on a ton of our deals. So I know their programs are fantastic.
It's still a great option for your buyers.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I trust that company enough. It has brought some challenges though. Obviously she's learning still. I had a learning phase where deals fell out, and, but overall, it's been good.
What would you say has caught you off? I love what you said about how you kind of got your butt kicked a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
What has kind of caught you off guard? What's been different in this first year?
In regards to?
Just in real estate, right? You obviously had some expertise in the industry. You obviously had some understanding of what you were doing when you were getting into it. What kind of caught you off guard? Like, what were you like, damn, like I was not expecting that to be such a big portion of the job?
I think the patience with people, and understanding this is their purchase, not mine, And
it's a scary purchase.
It is and it's one of the most emotional transactions of your life. And just understanding that, because from the wholesale world, it is a completely transaction to transaction to transaction. And it's a very cutthroat industry. And there's a ton of wholesalers here in Utah who are killing it, but they do whatever it takes to get the deal. And in this business, it's very referral based, so it's having patience with people and understanding that stuff isn't going to happen right away. And it's not on my timeline. It's on their timeline. And however I can service them better is just to be a fiduciary and a helping hand. And that's been the biggest learning curve, because in the beginning, I was more focused on my paycheck, and it's now shifted, especially with a little bit of a cooling off in the market, to really focusing on their needs and creating a brand for myself of integrity and respect and a good neighborhood helper.
Yeah, and that can't be faked, right? You have to figure out that. And good for you for figuring it out, because I think it took me 3 or 4 years to really figure out like what my value add was to my clients. Yeah. And that's what I think that you figured out at a young age. So congratulations to you. Yeah. That says a lot about where you're at. Any advice that you would have for somebody that's just starting in real estate?
Yeah. I I think it is so important to find a mentor.
Yeah. Understated fact right there.
Yeah, and people have their own opinions on this. I think joining a team is a great way to get into production, and it helps subsidize some of those months, even if you're paying a split on those leads. For me, it was never about the split. It was just about the experience of doing more transactions. And eventually, those people are going to be my SOI if I go do my own thing, whatever that looks like. So
if you handle your business appropriately,
if I follow up and manage those people properly. So yeah, I think the biggest two things would be getting a fantastic mentor, and if it fits your picture, joining a solid team, whatever that team is.
Okay, well, dude, I think you covered everything. We got 34 minutes down.
Dang.
That was perfect.
Yeah, it went quick.
That was legit. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Chilling?
Yeah, I'm chilling. That was awesome.
Okay, dude. Well, we appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.